Hey friend, Brennan here, and this is my 1 week review of the OnePlus Nord. The OnePlus Nord is here, ushering in a new product line for OnePlus to sit right in that budget tier. And I have to admit, I'm really excited about what's happening with smartphones right now. You see, the delight to dollar ratio of phones is improving like crazy on the more affordable end of the spectrum. But that also means that the budget battle is finally here, and that is one of the best things to happen for consumers. The most compelling thing about the OnePlus Nord is the price. It informs everything that we talk about in this review. Over the past few years, we've seen smartphone prices continually move higher and higher. In 2019 and 2020, we have seen companies execute clever ways of increasing their prices beyond that $1,000 price point by having base flagship models at $1,000, but with many compromises that make it generally unwise to purchase. The true version of that flagship without all the compromises are hundreds of dollars more, reaching as high as $1,300 or even $1,500 before storage and RAM upgrades. This has been what Samsung has done with the Galaxy S20 Ultra and the new Note 20 Ultra. When you're paying upwards of $1,500 for a phone, you kind of expect it to be perfect, and unfortunately, they aren't. When you combine that dissatisfaction of paying so much for a phone that doesn't live up to the hype and our current economic climate, the need for more affordable options is needed, and the OnePlus Nord is helping alleviate that issue. We first got a taste of what I call the incredible delight to dollar ratio with the Google Pixel 3a at $399, and now the Google Pixel 4a at $350, and now the OnePlus Nord at 399 euros with upgrade options and slightly different prices depending on your region. I actually asked my roommate how much he thought the phone cost, and he guessed over $1,000, and another friend thought it was at least $700. So we're off to a good start. And a lot of that has to do with the design, build, and feel. You see, the design of the phone is quite nice, with a nice curve on the back to fit in your hand, and a frame that looks like metal but is actually plastic without feeling cheap. You lose out on that heavy, cold feeling that you get from having a metal frame, but that may not be the worst thing, especially if you like a lighter, warmer feeling phone. There's a mic hole at the top, that great ringer switch that only seems to show up on Android devices through OnePlus, a power button that is cookie but not firm as other phones. On the other side, we have a SIM tray and the volume rocker, and at the bottom we have a single speaker port, a USB-C port that is compatible with Warp Charge to charge the 4,100 milliamp battery from empty to 70% in about a half an hour. And in my experience, the battery easily lasts throughout the day. I have this blue marble color that I think is just really nice. I love it. It's bright, airy, and fun without being obnoxious. As a whole, the device is really simple and clean looking with that long pill camera shape that has been seen in OnePlus Pro series models. Now, I do wish that the back had that matte finish glass design that is becoming more popular right now because it feels softer to the touch and it's less sterile. It also helps prevent all the fingerprints that accumulate on this thing like crazy. Of course, if you want to change up the color of your phone and reduce fingerprints, you can put on a skin from this channel sponsor dbrand. This is one of their teardown skins made in partnership with Jerry Rig Everything, but they have a ton of other colors to fit your style and taste, like their new pastel series. They have skins for a ton of other phones, laptops, game consoles, and so much more. Click the link in the description to find out more. The performance of the OnePlus Nord is really great. There are no complaints on my end. Previously, lower tier processors came with significant decreases in performance and experience, but that's no longer the case. OnePlus is using the mid-range Qualcomm Snapdragon 765G processor, and that's a good thing because it's a less expensive option than the Snapdragon 865 and 865 Plus that we've seen driving up the prices of flagship tier phones by a significant margin this year. And this is a good compromise because the performance is solid and more than sufficient for the majority of people for multiple years on top of that, and allows for a more affordable price point. This processor is the reason why OnePlus felt like it was time to revisit the mid-tier with a more affordable option. I tested out PUBG on it with the highest setting possible, and it ran smoothly for me, and even utilized the gaming mode option that optimizes performance while you're in the game. Now, is this the phone for the most hardcore gamer? Probably not, but you would probably pay for something a bit pricier if those differences mean enough to you, and that you believe it would make a notable difference that is worth paying for. Overall, navigating the interface is really fast and responsive. You do see some stutters here and there when pages are loading or images are loading, but that's really common with nearly any phone still. Another cool thing that OnePlus did with their software is utilize the default Google version of the phone app and the messaging app. When I asked OnePlus why they decided to go that route, they just said that what was already developed by Google was so good, so why double up on that effort? All in all, OnePlus did a fantastic job on the software front. We just need updates that are more consistent, and then they would have knocked it out of the park. Now, any potential slowness that could be there on the Nord because of that processor is surely hidden by the 90Hz refresh display. It makes the phone feel really snappy, smooth, and responsive. And it's totally one of those features that make you go, whoa, are you serious? It's in this at that price? So it's honestly the star of the show. In terms of the specifics, the display comes in at a 6.44-inch display at 1080 by 2400 with a 408 ppi, which looks really sharp and clean, despite being a little less dense than other options like the Pixel 4 XL and the Galaxy S20 Ultra by over 100 ppi, and even the new Pixel 4a by about 50 ppi. The 20:9 aspect ratio is also quite nice. I'm really enjoying this more narrow but tall phone trend because they seem to just fit more comfortable in the hand. The small bezels allow for a really large display without increasing the overall size of the device itself, and I love that it's flat and not curved. I don't have any issues with accidental touches because of that, and it doesn't make it feel any cheap or less premium because of it. Yeah, there is some very mild rainbowing and color shift, but it's honestly really something that you have to be actively looking for. Brightness is decent. It's not bad by any means. It's actually quite sufficient, but it won't give you that wow factor in direct sunlight. It does include one of those plastic screen protectors that are nice to have, but you can feel the edge of the protector, so that part does feel cheap. Once it starts accumulating scratches, it definitely has to go. In the corner is a hole punch cutout for two front-facing cameras. So as for the camera, I'll cut to the chase. As a whole, it's not fantastic. It's honestly the weakest part of the whole device. In my opinion, you don't get the Nord for the camera, you get it for everything else. If the camera means a lot to you in a smartphone, this is a huge bummer. There are definitely some good things about it, so no mistake there. But as an overall package, all the different options leave one feeling more disappointed about the phone because of their lack of quality. The experience would have been much better if they kept it simple and only included high quality sensors. Sometimes less is better. As for the best part of the camera, the main camera is solid and perfectly sufficient for most people, but it won't blow you away like what you'll see on a Google Pixel device or an iPhone. The portrait mode utilizes a depth sensor and aims for a more natural roll off into that blurry bokeh, which is similar to what Apple does with their iPhone, rather than that hard cutout that you'll get and it's typical on a Google Pixel device. And I think it does a solid job. The main sensor is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 sensor, which allows for some super high resolution photos. However, those of you who know how camera sensors work will know that lower megapixel counts allow for better low light quality photos and videos with less noise. Larger pixels just allow more light to hit it, and so it just gets less noisy. But the OnePlus Nord does have a night scape feature to help with that. Sometimes it does a really great job, and sometimes it just struggles. It seems like a fairly inconsistent experience for me. HDR is also an option, but I wouldn't turn it on because it just doesn't look great. I do really like that there's a Pro mode that provides manual controls for all the areas that you typically want, along with custom user settings and the ability to take pictures in RAW format. One interesting thing that I noticed is that the autofocus in video does a really great job on the default option, but becomes less accurate and even slow when you turn on the super stable feature. Personally, the option of using the hardware optical image stabilization over the software image stabilization is good enough on its own that I don't really intend on using super stable. The ultra wide is nice to have, but it's really not something that I would use for anything else other than documenting something, and that's because it's super mushy and noisy. And I'm sure you've probably heard it by now. The macro is not great. You would get a better photo out of the main camera zoomed in. It seems like it would have been more strategic to not even include the macro camera to begin with. When I talked to OnePlus PR, I know that they shared how they wanted to provide flexibility and options for people to use. That's something I can get behind. Unfortunately, because it isn't as high of a quality that is needed for a good experience, the macro lens can come across as more of a marketing point to sell a phone in the store rather than something people would actually ever use. So if they want to continue on that goal of providing flexibility and options, they just kind of need to bump up the quality quality of that lens first. The front-facing camera is solid for casual social media, and I love the ultra-wide option. It has one of my favorite features that came with the Google Pixel 3, so it's nice to see it show up again on another Android phone. And of course, the common trend that we're seeing not just with the OnePlus Nord, but really any other camera, is that the ultra-wide selfie camera is not as good as the main one, and you'll see that there's more noise in the shadow and less detail, but it's still decent. Both lenses do add some unusual color cast to my skin and struggles a bit with the highlights. And this is what the front-facing camera looks like with a really nice set of lights lighting me. And the ultra-wide camera for the front-facing camera works for video as well. It's still fun though, I like it. As for sound, there's no headphone jack, so you're left with down-facing speakers and a pair of Bluetooth headphones if you want to listen to things on your phone. The speaker quality is okay. It's a single mono down-facing speaker, and it's so easy to cover up when you're playing games or watching a video in landscape mode. The speaker does technically get loud, hitting at about 105 decibels if you're at least a couple inches away from the phone, but it doesn't feel loud because the frequency range doesn't allow for a full sound. Instead, it emphasizes that boxy mid-range sound with some really harsh highs. However, it's fantastic for podcasts. You can turn a podcast on and set the phone down on a table and walk across the room and hear everything that is being said easily. But if you want really good sound, I guess you're gonna have to use some Bluetooth earbuds like most people are doing with their phones anyways. A little bit of a bummer, I admit. As a whole, the OnePlus Nord is a fantastic phone at an astoundingly good price that mostly navigates that balance of putting exactly what is needed to give that great delight to dollar ratio. That delight to dollar ratio focuses more on the tangible experience over numbers and specs. And the OnePlus Nord is definitely one of the best out there for having a good ratio because it has a premium look and feel, a fantastic software experience, and a standout 90Hz screen. The ideal balance for me is missed slightly in terms of the camera and to a very small extent the speaker, but it's still a fantastic phone. If you don't really care about the camera at all or just want a camera that does a decent job, then I can't suggest the OnePlus Nord enough. The overall experience of using the OnePlus Nord is really quite enjoyable. Now, one thing to note is that the Nord is not available in North America. You can import it and use it in America by dropping in a GSM SIM like I'm using right now, but you'll end up with some compromises. The most notable compromise is that 5G won't work in America, and the additional cost of importing this really causes some of the benefits to decrease. Luckily, OnePlus told me that they're planning Nord devices for the United States, so we'll see what they have for us in the coming months. For now, we have the Nord to give us an idea of what we could see. So what are your thoughts on the OnePlus Nord and how the budget tier of devices is developing? Let me know in the comments and in the This Is Tech Today community Discord chat server. Thank you so much for watching This Is Tech Today, where we talk about the intersection of technology in our everyday lives, in business, and in all things creative. Until next time.